one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 2 is our consent docket.
Make a motion to approve the consent docket.
Second.
Okay, we've had a motion and a second. Would you call the vote, please?
Kathy Griffith,
Yes.
Melissa Hunt,
Yes.
Louis Williams.
Yes.
Adam Webb,
Yes.
Rob Clark,
Yes.
Mark Ham.
Yes. Consent docket carries. Item 3 is consider approval of a contract with Holbrook Asphalt LLC for street pavement preservation of selected city streets using high-density mineral bond HA5 in the amount of $160,705.40 as the lowest and responsible bidder.
Mayor and Council, good evening. This is a contract with Holbrook for street preservation of certain streets. This is, the target is for streets that are 2 to 8 years old, and it's a preservation strategy that will extend the life of the streets. So the way it works is all the streets are driven and ranked, and we have what we call the PCI for all the streets. So this is targeted for streets that have PCIs in the range from 80 to 100.
So this is a pre-chosen group of streets that are going to be done for this contract?
Correct. And this will allow us to do more.
Okay.
Very good.
Just curious, will this help prevent any of the separation that we have in a lot of the residential streets where asphalt? I understand if the separation's already occurred, it won't do that, but
Correct. If the separation is already occurred, this is not going to prevent, or it's not going to fix it. But this is to ensure that we don't get to that point.
okay, great.
Good.
So will they be removing just the top layer, removing all the asphalt and going back with asphalt?
No. For lack of a better term, this is like putting a sunscreen on the streets
Okay.
to prevent the oxidation of the
Okay,
asphalt
so this
content.
is more the liquid asphalt, filling all the cracks and voids and all that stuff.
Yes, we've already done some crack sealing, so this is going to go on top of the
Off of
asphalt
that. Okay.
to
Okay.
prevent the sun rays, the UV radiations, and moisture from getting in there.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Make a motion, we approve.
Second?
Okay, motion and a second. Would you call a vote?
Melissa Hunt,
Yes.
Louis Williams.
Yes.
Adam Webb.
Yes.
Rob Clark,
Yes.
Kathy Griffith,
Yes.
Mark Ham.
Yes, item carries. Item 4 is consider authorizing the budgeted purchase of one Federal Signal 508-128 outdoor warning siren with solar power option, pole, freight, and installation from Federal Signal Safety and Security Systems in the amount of $32,286.70, utilizing Oklahoma State Contract Number SW404F.
Mayor and council, good evening. The item before you would purchase an additional tornado siren or outdoor warning siren for our city. It is very similar to several of the units we already have. We'd recommend approval.
Is this a replacement or is this a new one?
It will, both. It will be placed somewhere in the area of 4th and Eastern, which is right in the middle of several of our older sirens. We will leave the old ones up. I mean,
Okay.
the old ones will run just as long as we can keep them running. They've been run for 55 years now, so I don't anticipate they're giving it up now. But this would be right in the middle of all
Okay.
of those. But,
How'd our sirens do last night? Or were they all operational?
as far as I know, every one of them fired.
Okay.
Thank you, Galen, for you and your team.
Yep.
It's diligent work this spring. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Been a busy spring.
Yep.
It has been very active, and we're not done.
Make a motion to approve.
Second that.
We've had a motion and a second. Will you call the vote, please?
Louis Williams.
Yes.
Adam Webb,
Yes.
Rob Clark,
Yes.
Kathy Griffith,
Yes.
Melissa Hunt,
Yes.
Mark Ham.
Yes.
Thank
Item
you.
carries. Thank you. Item 5 is consider approval of a change order with Voss Electric Company, doing business as Voss Lighting, for LED lighting upgrades for the Moore Public Library using Oklahoma Department of Energy grant funds.
Mayor and Council, in March of 2024, a contract was approved for the LED lighting upgrades at the library. The contract didn't include the upgrades for the emergency lighting, so this change order would add the cost of those lighting upgrades, bringing the contract total to $36,985. All will be funded with the Department of Energy grant funds.
Cool.
Great. Make a motion to approve.
Second?
We have had a motion and a second. You call the vote?
Adam Webb,
Yes.
Rob Clark,
Yes.
Kathy Griffith, Melissa Hunt,
Yes.
Louis Williams.
Yes.
Mark Ham.
Yes, item carries. Item 6 is consider approval of revocable permit and hold harmless agreement for the installation of an electrical line in the public right-of-way located at 2105 Northeast 15th Street. Application by Daryl and Carla Winter. And this was an item that we tabled and carried it over to this meeting.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor and Council. At the last council meeting, a revocable permit application was presented by Daryl Winters and tabled by the City Council to construct a lighted brick entryway. The entryway will have 2 brick columns connected by electrical branch circuit to power lights and electrical receptacles. The installation of electrical branch circuits within the right-of-way is to concern of safety to public, utility crews, and transportation crews. Branch circuits are not identified by any of the utility line locating companies. Staff also has concerns about glare in the use of proposed electrical receptacles within the right-of-way at 2101 or 2105 Northeast 15th Street. These 2 utility areas had 2 utility companies identified. The 2 utilities identified are owned and maintained by Cost Communications and Oklahoma Natural Gas and Division of One Gas Incorporated. Cost Communications indicate that electrical and general contractors may install around or over Cost Communication utilities, but the integrity of their facilities must be kept and notified them of any damages to occur to their facilities. Cost Communications did not address any future impacts. O&G has no objection to granting a revocable permit, but does require a minimum of 2-foot undisturbed separation from underground and above-ground facilities to be maintained. The customer's conduit shall install 90-degree sweeps to maintain the 2-foot separation horizontal and vertical from all O&G assets. Based on Daryl Winter's proposal, the electrical branch circuit will have to be 2 feet below the O&G line to maintain the crossing of Daryl Winter's private electrical line and O&G's gas main. Typically, an O&G line is 3 to 5 feet deep, but we're uncertain at this time. They didn't identify the depth of the line. Contractors will have to expose the line to verify and have the installation inspected. Lighting wattage has 3 levels of high wattage, moderate range, and low range. To serve driveways in a gentle and moderate light range for bulbs shall be 40 to 79 watts. Many landscape lighting fixtures within general range with 60 watts are common size. To help with glare and lighting elements shall not exceed a 6-foot height and no direction of the lighting onto traffic adjacent homeowners. The brightness of the level of a 60-watt incandescent bulb is the same as a 900 luminaire on an energy-efficient bulb. Daryl Winters has not indicated the use of the proposed receptacles. Staff recommendations deny the application due to safety concerns due to the lights being identified by future projects within the right-of-way. Any future utilities that wish to install their equipment within the area may be unaware of electrical branch circuits. Parameters set by O&G are maintained for the proper protection of utility lines and safeguards of utility workers. If council does choose to grant the revoked permit, we ask you to address the 2-foot horizontal vertical clearance by O&G, the installation 90-degree bends, the maximum height of 6 feet of the lighting element, a maximum of 60-watt incandescent bulb or 900 luminaires of an efficient bulb. Electrical installations must comply with local adoptions at a minimum and install at a 3/4 inch electrical conduit, maximum of 3 number 12 wires, maximum 120 volts, and operated by a switch, photocell, or timer. The current or future owner cannot hold any utility companies or city more liable for any damage or harm in installation of the private electrical wiring. I'll be here for any questions if council and mayor choose so.
I know we did have a couple people that have signed up to speak on this. Does anybody have any questions, council, for
Not yet.
the city staff? Not yet?
Nope, not yet.
Okay. I believe, Brian Overling, are you here?
Is this for item 6 or?
Oh, I'm sorry. Cody Clark.
Council, Mayor. My name's Cody Clark. I live at 2213 Northeast 15th Street. I actually own 2 properties in Lost Creek Addition, been there 19 years, and I'm the president of the HOA currently. I went over the minutes of the last, when this was tabled, and I just want to clarify something. Back in 2008, in the last meeting, we said that Northeast 18th was a private road. It is not a private road, it's a city road. Back in 2018, the contractor that built the development did not maintain the roads, and the city would not take over the roads due to the condition. The HOA worked with the city and Silver Star Construction and got a bid, and we paid $10,000 each as homeowners. And we worked with Silver Star. City took half of that responsibility up, and the homeowners took the other half. And Silver Star, Steve with Silver Star, came out, they completed the job, and at that point, the city, in 2008, adopted the street as it was no longer a private road. So I just want to make that clear. Currently, there are 12 entryways with electrical. I can tell you with 96 homes, we have 6 street lights. October 31st of 2023, in front of my house, a golf cart was struck with pedestrians in it by a car due to lack of lighting. And they went to Oklahoma OU Trauma Center, and it is extremely dark in that area. So with that being said, there's a couple of things. I miss Stan. I've known Stan for many, many years. In 2018, Stan came out to my property, and that addition, the roads are bad. There's 4-inch cracks, and it washed out my approach to my property. Stan, as he does, every Friday goes around and drive. He drove around to look at all the projects he had going on. And Stan came out, and Silver Star Construction was on my property within 2 hours tearing out my approach. And they had concrete out, coming out on Monday morning. There was no 1-800-OKIE or anything called on that particular deal. But he got it done, and I appreciate it. And last meeting, we talked about removing lights. All of these were put in 2000. There were no codes back in 2000 when these lights were installed. There was made mention that there's some that have solar lights out there. Bud Harris is the only property. Last year, some kids were under the influence and struck his pedestals and were arrested by Chief Gibson and his officers. And at that time, his electrical line was damaged he could have repaired it, but he decided just to put solar lights up there, which he wishes he'd went a different direction because they just don't stay illuminated long enough during the night, and depending on the weather. We talk about setting a bad precedence. I totally disagree with that. I think by a resident coming up with a licensed electrician, applying for a permit is setting the right precedence. Clearly, that's what we want. So if anybody were to come in to work in that right-of-way and have to pull a permit to work in that, the city would know there's a permit and there's a private line. And my 19 years of working there, we just went through OEC coming through and putting carbon fiber into our property, everybody's property in the neighborhood, which they done all over Moore. And they went through OG&E's easement, where their OG&E is not nowhere near this easement. The easement for OG&E and their power line is in the back of each property. It runs in the backyards between the properties. So there is no OG&E's main line up in the easement that we're talking about. But I can tell you, 16 times OEC cut OG&E's line in our neighborhood. 16 times.
1 minute
And
left.
with 1-800-OKIE called.
One more minute.
Okay. And so as the HOA president, I have no issues of granting this. It's in our covenants, they're allowed to have a pedestal, a mailbox out there. And I just don't understand why it's come to this amount of escalation. It's just somebody trying to improve their property and enjoy retirement. And 120 votes is no danger to anybody. I mean, it's on a GFI circuit. That's less than one, it takes less than 0.0005 seconds to trip a GFI circuit. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Mr. Winter, did you want to
Yes,
speak?
I appreciate
Yeah,
Mr.
5 minutes, yeah, 5 minutes.
I appreciate Mr. Clark shedding some light on it. I've only been in the neighborhood for 2 years. He's been there for 20. I originally was confronted with the problem with my project here, and it was suggested that I apply for a revocable permit. I did so, paid $150 for the privilege. So that's been done. And there is on the form itself, gives a description of what a revocable permit. I would suggest if you read that, you would understand that you are completely covered by my 120 volt and 20 amp line that goes to my driveway. But I will say this in addition to what Mr. Chad said. Mine is on a timer, and the receptacles are on GFI. So unless a contractor would come in the dark of night, there's not going to be any power at my driveway entry. And there was also mentioned last time that there was 3 solar-driven lights. I went back and checked, and I didn't see any, except for some on the street that the city claimed was a private road. And I've talked with the individuals that have those solar lights. They don't like them because the solar cells give out the batteries, and I've had that problem with my landscape lights, and I wanted to avoid that. That's the reason that I didn't take them up on their offer for a solar. So an electrical line does come up from the back of my property, so they'd really have to work hard to find that line on my property. The 2 lines that he mentioned that go across my driveway is the Cox and ONG. ONG's about 17 foot from the street. The Cox is about, I'm gonna guess, about 10. The items that we're talking about are well within 6 feet of the roadway. That's the start and stop of them. So there would be no issues with Cox or ONG. And I might add that we got the permit for the driveway. That driveway was put over those 2 utility lines. That's all I have. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
So, question,
Just a couple of questions for you.
do you have any issues with the requirements by the ONG letter or any of that kind of stuff?
I wasn't made aware I did call Oki and gave them the application with the indication that Oki had no issues with it.
Right.
They posted it, so I was not personally aware of any further stipulations with regard to ONG.
Yeah, there was a letter, right?
Yeah, I think what was the depth of the,
Has to be 2 feet
Your line.
below.
Well, the 3/4 inch conduit, which is all that's in place at this time,
Yeah.
is buried by code 18 inches down the side of my driveway, and then when it crosses the driveway in what they're referring to as easement, it's 2 feet
Below the surface.
below the surface.
Are you 2 feet away from the ONG
For ONG,
pipe?
that's where, yeah.
That somebody's gonna have to
I am guessing that I'm about 15 feet from south of the ONG line, and my driveway runs north and south.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you.
I just don't even see that to be an issue.
how about the brightness of the light?
Well, I'm not gonna fall on my sword on a 60 amp or 60 watt. It'll be whatever. Now, Cody did bring up a good point. One of the reasons that I wanted to do this project was the fact that our first year in this home, that cul-de-sac was had no illumination whatsoever. Now, my understanding, my neighbor got frustrated with it and knew what button to push, and it got fixed. But that, I figured these would add additional illumination to that otherwise dark cul-de-sac.
I think we're just wanting to make sure you're gonna be comfortable with the stipulations that the city.
Well, I was trying to listen to him. It kind of added another dimension from what was presented last week, or last meeting, but I certainly agree with the 60 watts, and
Did you say
is there anything else?
60 to 75, or was it 60 was the max?
What are you recommending, if this were
For the wattage.
approved, what do you recommend, what is the city recommending?
We said a 60 watt to 900 luminaires.
Okay.
All right, so if it
Perfect.
just follows those, then, yeah.
Okay,
Any
council,
other
any more questions?
I'm had reached out to the city, and they said this was the avenue for Mr. Winter to go if he wanted to do this, was the revocable permit. And I do think that we've set a precedence in the fact that others in the neighborhood have it. I think he's gone about it the right way, and I think the city now knows that the lines are there. And so I'm in favor of this revocable
Yeah, and
permit.
I think I am too, and he's been given conflicting information each time he's approached. It sounds like he's learned something even new tonight, but
Right,
that should have been addressed
I should say I'm in
before.
favor of, as long as he follows what ONG
Yeah,
and the
correct.
other requirements from the city.
The one issue that was probably the biggest one for me was the safety of those workers that would have to get on the easement, and if it was a safety concern for someone to get hurt doing the digging. So I'd like you to address that just one more time.
So like the concern they kind of brought up is, that's kind of like ONG. They want 2 feet clearance because they require a 2-foot perimeter when they do work. They don't want to basically get hit with it. Another thing with 120 amp, he was talking about, no, GFCI, that's more for electrical shock. That's if it trips. Sometimes it doesn't. The problem we have with 120 is that's what makes your muscles contract. So you just hold on to it. Versus a 200 amp, you're going to feel the shock, but it's going to blow your hand off. So that's what's kind of the concern we had with that, but that's just a typical wiring method. Everything he's bringing is a typical lighting fixture, just being in the right of way. Being on the record, like previously you talked about how other properties have this. Well, it goes back to, they're bringing up different numbers than what staff has. All staff could do is by vision what we can see outside. Sound like 1 or 2 of them didn't repair or just left it alone. Again, it goes back to, right now I know of 1 on record, and that's where I'm kind of, the record keeping over time will dissipate.
So my question, will we go inspect this before they cover it back up? And will we have record of where his new lines are running so that anybody else that pulls a permit will know this?
So we will inspect it because ONG put perimeter and we have right of way inspect. That's the reason why the permits are required. We inspect those. The problem with this is this never goes to line locate. I don't know if utility company calls those in. They don't notify me. They have their own services. Let's say, I don't know, Cox Cable or Verizon decide to put wire lines out there. They get doing it. They turn line locate. None of this is notified to them. Even though there's a revocable permit, the revocable permit just says, if lieu of or whatever, we can remove the utilities if needed. But
And the line's not live during working hours.
it is.
Well,
It's timer, correct?
Well, the power's still there,
power's
just
still
the
there.
bulb's
Still
not
be
lit
running
up.
to it, yeah.
It's not lit. Yeah, there's still power to
There's
the
still power to it.
pedestal, yeah. No? Where's the timer?
The timer's in the house.
Again, it's like a switch. It has power and anything there, but if it's faulty, there's no safe parameter.
I
So.
get it, I get it.
And it's making sure that the person turns it on and off.
Yeah, and here's concerned, because they also talk about putting electrical receptacles in there. Is that going to be part of the timer then too? Because if they're putting receptacles, then, so that's the part I don't know either.
Based on the statement I heard him make, that when the timer is not on, the receptacles will be dead also?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The receptacles would only allow us to have some decorations at the entry to a driveway.
Sure.
That's gonna happen at night, And so my timers will cut off at that time. I'd like to also point out that my driveway is 12 foot wide. The 3/4 inch conduit was laid down the side of the driveway and then over to the other side. So it's consistently below a 6-inch, and that was across my entire driveway was 6-inch with 1/2 inch steel on 2-foot centers. I don't believe somebody's just gonna dig and hit my line.
And then how many people in your neighborhood already have these established?
I wasn't sure, the lady from the city said there was 3. I gave you a picture that
there's
had
like
at
8.
least a dozen.
Right.
But they were mentioned that those were on a private road, which no one seems to know where the private road is.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some discrepancy there.
Okay.
I've only been there for 2 years, and so there's a lot of history there that I'm not familiar with.
Understandable.
Right.
Yep.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you very much.
May I speak on the safety part that Mr. Clark have concern with?
You can have a minute. I think you're worried about ready to.
I'm actually a subject matter expert on that. I've been a director of HSE for 25 years. I've dealt with more blood and electrical shocks on drilling rigs and so on and so on. First, I just want to point out that in order to get to these electrical lines for any contractor, they would have to dig out the approach, which is 6 inches with wire. Steel, not wire. A GFI, its purpose is to search for imbalance of electricity. And 5 milliamps is all it takes to trip a GFI. I don't care if it's a 50 amp, 100 amp, if it's on a GFI breaker, we're not talking about a GFI receptacle, we're talking about a GFI breaker. Just to give you an idea what 5 milliamps is, okay? It takes 1,000 milliamps to make 1 amp electricity. So you wouldn't feel anything at all for that breaker to trip. I just wanted to shed some light on that.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
I'll make a motion to approve the revocable permit.
Do we want to put any?
Along with the stipulations of ONG and anything that Cox has required.
Do we want to, I guess, backdate any of those stipulations since so many people already have them installed?
I would suggest, let's take a vote on this, and then we could have Brooks direct the city staff to look at implementing some kind of a timeline, so from this date forward,
Yeah.
whatever that date will be, no
Agreed.
longer can
No
people
longer
do
can
this.
No more of these past a 90-day period, or for example, just throwing out a number as an example, no one else can do it. I would
Well,
agree
we'll
with
do
that.
some research and figure out what the right number
I think we need to research even the ones that are already in there. I mean, if we're gonna ask Mr. Winters to abide by certain speculations, is there a way for that? I mean, I
I
just,
think we should probably,
I would second Melissa's emotion.
There you
or
go.
motion,
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
all right, so we've had a motion. Are you clear on the motion? And we've had a second. Would you call the vote, please?
Rob Clark,
no.
Kathy Griffith,
Yes.
Melissa Hunt,
Yes.
Louis Williams.
Yes.
Adam Webb,
Yes.
Mark Ham.
Yes. Item passes. And then Brooks, if you could have your staff look into
Yes.
some things for the,
We'll do
for the
some research,
future.
yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
And come back to council.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
And Mr. Winter, thanks for going through the
Proper channels.
the right way to do this. Sorry that it was such a headache.
There was some news today, tonight that I was not privy to, and so whatever stipulations there were presented by Cox or ONG, I'm sure I can
Yep.
satisfy their.
All right.
So can we make sure he gets
Yes.
those documents, please?
Thank you.
We'll place on his permit after today's meeting
Okay,
and
all
finish up the documentation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we'll recess the city council meeting and convene the Moore Public Works Authority meeting. Item 7 is the consent docket.
Make a motion, we approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Would you call the vote?
Kathy Griffith,
Yes.
Melissa Hunt,
Yes.
Louis Williams.
Yes.
Adam Webb.
Yes.
Rob Clark,
Yes.
Mark Ham.
Yes, consent docket is approved. We'll recess the Moore Public Works Authority meeting and convene the Moore Risk Management meeting. Item 8 is the consent docket.
Make a motion to approve the consent docket?
Second that?
A motion and a second. You can call the vote, please.
Melissa Hunt,
Yes.
Louis Williams.
Yes.
Adam Webb.
Yes.
Rob Clark,
Yes.
Kathy Griffith,
Yes.
Mark Ham.
Yes, consent docket is approved. We'll recess the Moore Risk Management meeting and convene the Moore Economic Development Authority meeting.
Will you call the roll, please?
Kathy Griffith,
Here.
Jason Blair, Mark Ham,
Here?
Louis Williams.
Here.
Adam Webb,
Here.
Rob Clark,
Here.
Melissa Hunt.
Here. Item 10 is a consent docket.
Motion to approve.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Will you call the vote, please?
Kathy Griffith,
Yes.
Mark Ham,
Yes?
Louis Williams.
Yes.
Adam Webb,
Yes.
Rob Clark,
Yes.
Melissa Hunt.
Yes. We'll now recess the Moore Economic Development Authority meeting and reconvene the city council meeting.
Item 11 is new business, citizens forum for items not on the agenda. And here's where, sorry to cause you to panic, Mr. Overling, but we'd love to hear what you say. Please just state your address for our record, and you'll have 5 minutes.
My name is Brian Overling, 2732 Southeast 38th Street. Mr. Mayor, Councilman, I appreciate you giving me a few minutes just to talk about this. I sent you some pictures of what we're dealing with in the Cedar Farms neighborhood. The Assistant City Manager has set up a meeting tomorrow with the contractor to go back over it. I do appreciate all your support in getting this fixed. And should there be any problems, I'll communicate again.
And actually, our assistant city manager had something to say, was it about this?
yeah.
And I forgot to, if you're gonna bring us an update on some things?
Yeah, I was gonna, kind of go over what occurred and.
Did you have more to say?
No.
Jerry,
Thank
you
you
just
very
want to
much for
bring us up to
showing.
date
Thank
on
you.
some of
Thank
these issues and what the city's doing to address it, please?
Mayor and council, you did receive the email from Mr. Brian Overling, and it's absolutely 100% correct. We had, we had done a final walkthrough on the project, and then we had a list of deficiencies that had to be addressed, as are with all projects. On this particular project, if you can imagine when you're constructing a sewer line that's 25 feet deep, that over time, as you get rain, it's going to settle. And so Mr. Overling actually contacted me in April and indicated that the contractor had gotten outside of the easement for the project, and he was absolutely correct. And we contacted the contractor and visited with him, and he said, well, we'll go ahead and fill in the ruts, and make sure that it's level and whatnot. Secondly, then the new sod was put down, which was on the punch list of items. And Mr. Overling contacted me again and indicated that, hey, they brought out a large pile of dirt, and while they were doing that, the truck that delivered the dirt drove over the sidewalk and broke the sidewalk, and absolutely correct. And I contacted the contractor again and let him know and asked, well, what's going on? Because they never, as you go through this process and we do the punch list items, and they go back and gather the material and the equipment that they're going to use to take care of these punch list items, and then they're supposed to contact us as to, okay, we're going to be going to work to do this, starting this date and do this at this time. Well, they never contacted us. If it wasn't for Mr. Overling, we wouldn't have known that they'd been out there. And so the bottom line is that, and then, they did, as I said, that the around the manholes, it settled, 4 or 5 feet. And, the contractor indicated that's what the dirt was for, to fill in around all these manholes in the area. And, well, they did use it for that partially, but they also went ahead and spread it over the top of the sod, and they chose to do it. They had a subcontractor do it. They were not here. They chose to do it on a day after it rained, and created even more ruts. And then the top, or what they used to go over the top of the existing sod and whatnot to try to level some of the ruts that they had created more of. It was waste material from when they had done some work and they of what they had removed from the trenches, and it wasn't topsoil. It wasn't material that you would use. It even had some asphalt, concrete, rocks. There were several rocks. And so, and also when the truck drove over and broke the sidewalk, they also broke the sprinkler system, as they drove over it. And so, as I said, Mr. Oberlin is absolutely correct. And each time that they had their sub went out there, first sub and a second sub, each time that they went out there, they made it worse than what it was when we did our initial walkthrough and inspection. But I think with the help of Mr. Overling's email, the contractor came down. We were able to get the contractor to come down and visit. And this morning we walked through it, and they had one of their higher important people there. We walked through the job site, talked about what needed to be done from one end to the other through the addition, and they've indicated that they think they can complete the work in about 2 weeks, weather dependent, as long as we don't get rain. And we discussed, if you get rain, don't put any equipment out there. And, the other thing that we discussed is, there's no need for any heavy equipment. This is restoration, cleanup, leveling the sod area and whatnot, and removing the rocks. And so, they said all of the right things today, and we also told them that this is your last chance. If you don't get it right this time, to the satisfaction of not only the city, but Mr. Overling and Mr. Haddock with the HOA, then we're going to go ahead and have a contractor come out, and we're going to finish it, and we're going to make sure it's going to be done right, and we're going to take it from your retainage. And they agreed to that. And tomorrow morning, I've set up a meeting with Mr. Overling and Haddock from the HOA with the contractor who's going to be over the work. And we're going to walk through it again and make sure that everybody's got the same understanding.
Very good. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Jerry.
Thank you, Mr. Oling. Thank you for holding us accountable and letting us know. And we'll definitely hold those
Absolutely.
subcontractors accountable for the job that they're hired to do. We want it done right, so thank you. And I had a Jordan Hogden signed up to speak. And if you'll just, again, state your address, give us your address, and you'll have 5 minutes.
Okay. My address is 126 Platt Lane. I am coming to you tonight on behalf of the citizens who would like to see backyard chickens accessible to residents of Moore who are not zoned as A1 or A2 residents. There are some people here tonight who have taken time to come and voice their support as well. If you guys would stand real quick, if you're able. Thank you, guys. We believe chickens have a much more positive effect than negative, and here are some of the reasons we'd like our council members to consider changing the ordinance against backyard chickens. First, and possibly most important, is the food. In these uncertain times, the price of food feels completely unpredictable, and for some citizens, this leads to food insecurity. Having backyard chickens would secure a source of protein so that no matter what happens, citizens will have the option to feed their families without relying on programs to secure their needs. It's an excellent supplement to the diet to have eggs when the grocery bill may not be so flexible. Next, it is a practical solution to pest control. Chickens are a chemical-free way to reduce pests such as ticks and mosquitoes, as well as a chemical-free fertilizer. This will also lead to better health outcomes in food and water supply. Third is the children. We know that with backyard chickens, children will become more aware of where their food comes from, which is something that's really lacking in modern times, as well as proper care and husbandry of animals. This isn't something that's regularly taught in schools, but willing parents can have the option to give this educational experience to their kids. Raising chickens has known mental health benefits. It keeps us outdoors, raising vitamin D levels, and increasing dopamine offline. It's a more sustainable and healthy way to eat eggs. Factory farm chickens have a much greater negative impact on our land and bodies, and raising our own is a step towards mitigating that risk. Norman and Oklahoma City have approved this initiative already. It's been efficient for them and effective. And the city of Moore has deep roots in agriculture, something that seems nearly lost in the urban landscape it is today. Those that came before us would certainly understand the need to preserve our connection to our food through accessibility to backyard chickens. Approving this would bridge that gap. There are some objections that have been made in the past that I'd like to address. The Moore Animal Shelter, this was previously an obstacle. No longer it applies as it is operational. Noise complaints, it's reasonable for the council to accept this initiative with limitations for the urban environment they're in, such as hens only, no roosters, limiting the number of hens per property, such as 1 per every 10 to 20 square feet. There have been residents who are Zone Day 1 that have expressed willingness to volunteer to take roosters so that that wouldn't be a hindrance to accepting the initiative. Should you decide to consider and approve this tonight, dozens of citizens would feel more food secure and enabled to make the best choice for their family. We do not plan to drop or give up on this until it is approved, so whatever that takes, however many ways we need to show you it's valuable for our city, we will. Thank you for your time. We ask that you reconsider the ordinance against backyard chickens.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very much. Brooks, I think maybe my memory is a little wrong, but is there any way we can go ahead and pursue getting an update from Norman and Oklahoma City on how this has been working?
I've already requested John Fryer from Animal Control begin that process.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Basically, we just want to make sure it's working well or not well in those other communities and get some feedback. Since they've initiated, it's kind of young.
Okay.
I think that would be a positive thing.
Know about how long that will take?
I'll have to get in touch with Mr. Fryer and see where he is on his investigation.
So what's a reasonable amount of time till we should come back?
A month?
Okay, thank you.
I would just add,
Go ahead.
it was probably 2 years ago, a group came before the city council asking about chickens, and at that time, we asked them to hold off until we got the new animal shelter constructed. And then if people were still interested, they'd bring it back, and so people have come back. And I think it's time, not tonight, but once the city does its research and maybe even presents a proposed ordinance, that we make a vote either to support it or deny it, and give those folks an answer to their question.
And since there's so many people here, I'll just kind of publicly say my view on this pretty candidly. We raised chickens growing up for over 20 years. I'm very familiar with that process. My concern is the knowledge base of whoever chooses to get a chicken and how those chickens are going to be treated, essentially, okay? So in a summary. And so there would have to be maybe even more stringent restrictions than what Norman and Oklahoma City have, just to make sure these animals are treated correctly, they're housed correctly, and things to that nature. So that will be kind of my concern moving forward, is that, you know, it's cute to see a chicken at Tractor Supply or at Atwoods, taking one home and having it live there for years and having a roost for it, protecting it from predators that will occur, flying over your neighbor's fence, getting eaten by a dog, whatever. These things are going to happen. Those things need to be looked at in a responsible way to continue on the process for me.
What kind of process would that look like?
I don't know. We'll probably evolve as we pursue and get feedback from others.
Okay.
But I would be very curious. Chickens can die easily in the heat. They can die easily in the cold and not protected from wind. And I don't know that anyone that just goes and buys them is going to understand heat lamps, all the array of care that they're going to need to avoid any abuse.
Yeah, the city could potentially put a video together of training people on chickens. That would be helpful as well.
Well, in enforcement measures, I think the burden on training is on the individual that wants them, not the city.
You're assuming that they won't be trained.
Some won't, ma'am. I can probably call immediately and find chickens abused quickly. Okay, to other council people and stuff. But yeah, that's something we'll need to make sure is safeguarded.
Of course.
Going forward, that they're not left out in the heat, just dying of heat stroke and other various issues that could occur in a suburban
Pretty sure everybody
setting.
could get on board
Yeah.
with safety of animals.
And I'm not saying I'm just in favor of chickens, but same issue applies to dogs and stuff
Right.
too. People don't care for their dogs properly either in the city, so.
Chickens are definitely different and more
Right,
finicky,
that's
I
why I have
think.
an animal shelter,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, that's arguments.
$1 million animal
Right,
shelters.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you guys for coming out and bringing it up.
Yep, we do appreciate it. We really do. Nobody else? Is there anybody else here that would like to speak on something that they didn't sign up? Anything from the city council trustees? I would say on Monday, the 27th, out at Veterans Park, starting at 10, there's going to be a memorial service. So I'd love for you to come out and be a part of that. It'll be about an hour. That's all I have. Anybody else? Brooks, did you have anything?
Couple of things. Mayor and council, we were awarded a little over $10.5 million in ACOG funds for the Telephone Road project and the Southwest 27th and Shields Boulevard intersection project. So we ended up getting 26% of the total funds awarded for the ACOG budget year. So congratulations to Jerry, Elizabeth, Callie, and
Thank you,
everyone
guys.
else
Very
that's
good,
involved.
thank you.
So that works out very well for us. And this morning, Representative McBride came by and gave me the flag that was flown at the Capitol in honor of Mayor Lewis. And so I have that and a couple of things from the governor that I will be honored to give Laura Lewis when she's back in town in a couple of weeks.
Wonderful.
Great, thank you.
Great, thanks. Also, the city got a $320,000 grant for some street striping that'll be going on. So again, I'm so grateful that we're applying for state grants and federal grants to help with some of the costs of running the city. So good job. Item 12 is executive session. Section 307, Title 25, Oklahoma statutes permits the public body to meet in executive session for certain specified reasons under certain specified conditions. It's the opinion of the city attorney that the city council may consider and adopt a motion to meet in executive session to discuss the following items. A, discuss and consider taking action concerning the city manager's evaluation and employment benefits as authorized by 25 Oklahoma Statute 307B1. That's the only item.
Make a motion that we convene to executive session.
Second. We've had a motion and a second. Would you call the vote?
Kathy Griffith,
Yes.
Melissa Hunt,
Yes.
Louis Williams.
Yes.
Adam Webb.
Yes.
Rob Clark,
Yes.
Mark Ham.
Yes, we'll be in executive session.
Thank you.
wanted to stay.
Item B is convened to, item C is reconvene from executive session. Just let the record show everybody that was present is still present. And item D is the action.
I make a motion that we proceed as directed.
Second.
Had a motion and a second. We call the vote, please.
Kathy Griffith,
Yes.
Melissa Hunt,
Yes.
Louis Williams.
Yes.
Adam Webb,
Yes.
Rob Clark,
Yes.
Mark Ham.
Yes. Item carries. Item 13 is adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
You call the vote?
Melissa Hunt,
Yes.
Louis Williams,
Yes.
Adam Webb.
Yes.
Rob Clark,
Yes.
Kathy Griffith,
Yes.
Mark Ham.
Yes. We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.